Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. Today on the show, I'm talking about Scream 6. Welcome back to Cinema Trip Reviews, everyone. I am Wyatt. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Pretty much available everywhere. Definitely drop in and leave us a good review. Today, I'm talking about Scream 6. Just opened up over the past weekend. Now, before we get into the actual review, since I haven't covered Scream really in any capacity on the channel, want to kind of give you just my oversight, not on every movie, but that kind of my history with the franchise. Growing up, getting into horror and everything, Scream and the Scream franchise are really what kind of set me on the path. I mean, those movies I really watched a lot as a kid because there was only those first three whenever I was a kid getting in the horror movies. And of course, later I went and saw 4 and then eventually 5 whenever they were released. As I was a kid getting fresh into horror, I remember Scream was always one that was shown on TV a lot, you know, whether it was like AMC or I believe it was like Fox. I remember showed like Scream 2 at one point, because I remember like taping it for some reason. But I remember watching definitely those first 2 a lot. I did have 3 in that rotation, but even like now, Scream 3 is really not one that I go back to at all. But that first one I absolutely love. Scream is definitely a classic, going down as one of a great horror film in history, directed by the great Wes Craven. As I was getting older and growing up and rewatching them over the years, I have really kind of developed a weird relationship with Scream. It's not like what it used to be. I mean, of course I have that love for the first movie. That's not going anywhere. But as I'm rewatching them and everything, it's just, I am at a place where all of these movies are the same. And I know that like you could say that kind of about a lot of horror franchises, that like, oh, they do a lot of the same elements. But when it comes to my opinion of Scream and Scream as a franchise, every single movie pretty much does the exact same thing. You have a lot of the same story beats. You have a lot of the same, you have that blueprint for a Scream movie, and they follow it to damn near to a T every single time. I mean, you have just a couple things. I mean, you have like the call to open up the movie and the first kill in every movie. You always have a scene where like the group of survivors or a group of friends get together and they talk about this version's a meta for the movie. Like this is how it relates to like actual film franchise or a sequel or a trilogy or or a quadrilogy or whatever. How that situation relates within like films. That's always in all these movies. You have to have the scene. You have to have Ghostface being the bumbling fucking killer, getting knocked down and stuff thrown at, and he's falling all over the place, getting beat up all to hell. Every movie. You always have the big reveal with the killer where they have the huge monologue explaining their whole plan and their motives and why they did it. And then, of course, they end up getting killed, and then they come back for that final scare, and then they get shot again. And it's like, I get it. I understand why people like it. But me, I'm at the point where it's like, it's the same thing every time. It gets old to me. And I mean, every movie kind of has a thing where it kind of makes it a little, they put it in a different location. Sydney's in college. They're in Hollywood now. They're back in Woodsboro, but there's new kids. And then, well, I don't know. It's all the same formula, just set in different places with a kind of a different backdrop or a different thing happening at that time. But it all hits those same damn story beats every single time. And it's just not much of a difference for me between these films. I mean, I feel like watching this 6th Scream movie isn't any different than watching 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, other than just the different set of characters and everything. And I'm not trying to just put hate on these movies. I mean, they're extremely well-made movies. I mean, there's a reason why Scream is up there as one of the top, solid horror franchises out there, because they're very well made. I mean, Wes Craven made, 4 of them, but a majority of, even 5 and 6 with the newer directors like Radio Silence, they're well-made movies. They're well put together, but they just don't do anything different with these opportunities. I mean, you had, especially in this new movie, going to New York City, you had a lot of different opportunities you could have taken. And I mean, you have like the subway scene, which you see in the trailer, everything. But they don't really capitalize on being in New York City as much as you would think. for them making a huge point of, oh, we're going to New York City, it's a new location and everything. And that's my problem with Scream. And that's what I was really looking for going into this movie, is like, what are they going to really do different to make it stick out from the rest of these movies? They tried to do something within Scream 5. I didn't cover Scream 5 last year whenever it came out, but I just was not a fan. I would say Scream 5 is probably my least favorite of the whole franchise. The new characters are okay. I think they're better in this movie than they were in last movie to a degree, assuming a lot of you have seen Scream 5 at this point, so spoiler alert as far as Scream 5. I was not on board with the whole Sam seeing Billy Loomis, like her dead father who she never met, and she, like, how would she even know, he wouldn't even know really what he looks like or what he sounds like. I don't know. I was just not down with that sort of thing. It just seemed very, like, out of left field for within the Scream universe to do. And it just doesn't make any sense, really. And they haven't really capitalized on it at all, other than just kind of a little something they threw in the Scream 6, which they also don't capitalize on. And that's a huge part of my problem with Scream 6. They introduced some things, some new things that I'm like, okay, I could buy into this. I could be on board with this. And then they just kind of ignore them and then just don't follow up with any of them again, and then they just go back to that same Scream formula where everyone's accustomed to now. And I think that's why fans of the Scream series love every movie, because they love Scream. They love Scream 2. And I mean, Scream 3 is like Scream 2 and Scream 1. Scream 4 is like 3, 2, and 1. 5's like 4, 3, 2, and 1. I mean, that's why everybody loves these movies, because you're getting the same movie every time. You're getting those characters that you love. Well, now you're kind of going away from those characters and getting introduced to the new core, the core 4, which is dubbed in this movie. I don't know. I'm going to get off the subject because we're going on a little too long here. Point is, I'm getting a little played out of Scream because it's the same every single movie. And I'm getting to the point where it's like, you need to do something or I'm going to check out, at this point. I mean, I'm not going to sit and watch the same buy-in and try to watch the same movie every year. I mean, I just can't do it to a certain point, especially since I'm not as entertained as I used to be. And that's the biggest thing that it is for me. That's the biggest thing for me, is entertainment. And whenever you're giving me the same thing, the same product, just like with a new wrapping paper on it, it's not entertaining to me. And I mean, that's the thing with some of these other horror franchises where, like, yeah, they have shitty sequels. They're not as well made, but a lot of them try to do different things. They try to play with new ideas. Hell, at least some of them, they could have a bad movie, but the kills are what stands out, and the kills are what makes some of these older, terrible slashers great. Whereas Scream, you're not really getting any creative kills with these movies. I mean, you get maybe one creative kill every movie. Other than that, it's just the same old Ghostface stabbing people with a knife over and over and over again or whatever. And it's like, every movie they promise, this is the most brutal gore Ghostface you've ever seen in your life or whatever. And it's like, we hear that every movie, and every movie we're proven that it's not true. It's the same as the last movie. Oh, you maybe introduced a little more blood in it? Okay. But anyway, Scream 6. My expectations, exactly what I was saying. I expected it to be a Scream movie, and I was given a Scream movie. I mean, it's the exact same thing what I was mentioning, just with new killers attached. Who's the killers in this movie? But they did kind of lure me in with the opening of the movie. They did kind of take it in a little bit of a direction where it kind of made my ears perk up a little bit, like, oh, this is interesting. I'm wondering where this is going to go. And it doesn't go anywhere. Really. I mean, it sets something up, and they kind of introduce more of a plot to kind of building off that opening part. And you think they're going to go one way, and then they just straight go into an entirely different direction. I did read something about they did kind of change the ending a little bit because of Nev Campbell not coming back for this one, which is fine. I think Nev and some of the original cast members should have been gone with this franchise a long time ago at this point. So, I mean, at least they kind of gave her like her happy ending is what they call it in the movie. They alluded to it, like they ask if Sydney's going to come back, and I forget what her exact quote was, but she's like, oh, her and the husband took their kids and they're hiding away. She deserved her happy ending or whatever. It's like, oh, that's great. But hopefully they don't bring her back going forward. Like, that was enough of a send off. Leave it at that. Go for it. If you're going to make more, go forward with these new cast of characters. Speaking of characters, we're going to get into that. Jen Ortega she's definitely one of the best parts of this movie. She's absolutely great in it. She was great in the last one. One of the best parts of that last one. She continues to be, just a force to be reckoned with within the horror community, and she's pretty much everywhere at this point. But she's great in this movie. Melissa Barrera, she is okay for the most part in the movie. She was decent in the last one. There's a couple moments that are a little like soap opera-ish. There's a couple moments in the movie where it just kind of slows down, and then you have like these a little over dramatic scenes, like a very kind of ring soap opera-ish, a little over dramatic. They could have toned it down a little bit more. Her acting at a couple parts in the movie was like, I don't know, maybe you could have did a couple more takes with that. But overall, she was pretty great. It was great seeing Hayden Panettiere come back as Kirby in this one. I don't think she had enough to do in this. They made a whole point of her coming back. She had her whole Hillary Clinton haircut and everything, but they didn't really give her enough to do. She is in the movie. She is like an FBI agent. It's a little jarring to see her. It doesn't even seem like that long ago since Scream 4 release, and now she's an FBI agent, and she was just in high school. I don't know. It seems like a very quick, process of her becoming an FBI agent and everything. But as an FBI agent, there's a lot of info that's given in this movie. It was like, oh, she probably should have known that she's an FBI agent. Maybe she should have done a little bit more research or reconnaissance. I don't know. I just feel like she was underutilized, especially them making kind of a bigger deal about her coming back, that I thought she was going to have more of a big role in this movie, which she really doesn't. Same with like Gail, Courtney Cox. She really didn't need to be in this movie at all. I think they just kind of shoved her in there because it is a Scream movie and she didn't die in the last one. And I'm not going to get into spoilers as of right now, but I mean, she really wasn't needed as far as the plot's concerned. I guess it was nice seeing her. I don't know. I feel like she should have died in the last one instead of Dewey, but what are you going to do? But she really wasn't needed in this one as well. And I mean, we'll get to more of her in a moment. We also got Mason Gooding as Chad, comes back from 5. He's pretty decent in this one. I think I liked him more in this movie than I did in the last movie. I think they did a good job of building the relationship between, the core 4, as they're called in this movie. They did a pretty decent job with their interactions and everything. You do have a couple of new characters in there, like Sam and Jenna Ortega's roommate, the redhead. She's played by Liana Liberto. And they also have Chad's roommate and his name, and he's like Jack Champion, I guess his name is. But his name is Ethan in the movie. The new characters in this movie, they don't really do much with at all. So it's really not worth talking about as of right now. And like a lot of people kind of made a big thing about Samara Weaving, like a lot of people kind of guess, she is at the very beginning of the movie. She is one of the ones that gets the first call. But as of right now, it's kind of hard to get in the movie without going into spoilers. So I'm going to get into spoilers as of right now. If you haven't seen the movie, you kind of know what my opinion is of it after me talking about the Scream franchise. If you've seen all the other ones, you're not missing much in this one other than who the new killers are. So, I mean, go out and watch the movie and then watch the rest of the video if you haven't. For those have seen the movie, keep watching because I'm going to talk some more in depth about Scream 6. So the beginning of the movie, this is, and I talked about earlier about some of their ideas that I liked that they didn't really follow through with. And before people go into the comments or people come at me like, you're just unhappy because it's not what you wanted. And it's like, I didn't have any specific vision for what I wanted Scream to do. There's a lot of cool ideas that they talked about in this movie or like have come up online or whatever. I could definitely see them. I just want them to go in a different direction. I really do. I want them to do something different with the formula. Go off the beaten path. Do something different with this franchise instead of having the same movie over and over and over again. And they introduced a couple elements in this movie I think that could have worked. I mean, the very beginning of the movie was Samara Weaving. As everybody kind of predicted and knew, she is like the first kill of the movie. Big problem with that one already because like they introduced her as like this college professor. She teaches like film history and everything, or she teaches like film history or like a film class. But she has like, she's talking on the phone with, of course, is going to be Ghostface about how she's teaching like about 80s slashers and everything and all the tropes and stuff. And as she's doing this, she's slowly getting lured into an alley. And as she's doing this, she's slowly getting lured outside and then into an alley in New York City where it's like, you're a college professor who studies film and it's specifically studying 80s slashers or just slashers in general at that point, or 90s slashers, why you think you would be smart enough to not get lured out? And take away the fact that she, into films or slashers. As a woman, why would you go outside in New York to meet like a blind date and then get lured into an alley? Like, you, at the very least, you would just stand outside the building, right, where people are. Why would you get lured into an alley? I don't know. There are so many dumb decisions in this movie, and that's some problems I have too, which we'll get to. There's so many dumb decisions. But the thing that's awesome about this part is when she gets lured in, of course, she gets killed. The killer takes off his mask, and you see who it is. I'm like, whoa, we've never been in this territory. What's happening now? And then you go into, like, you follow this guy, which I don't know how he wasn't caught. You're in New York City. I feel like it's 2020. This movie's set like a year after the first one. So it's like 2022, 2023 or something in this, whatever. But the point is there's cameras everywhere. There's a lot more security than there was in like the 90s. It's harder to get away with that kind of shit now, I would assume. Kid doesn't get caught at all, though. This kid and his roommate are like fans of Richie's, the killer from the last movie, and they want to like finish his film. So they're getting up the courage and they want to go out and start killing in the name of Ghostface. They're just obsessed with this thing. But sure enough, there's another Ghostface on their tail, and then he ends up he ends up calling that guy and, giving him the runaround. He thinks it's his best friend. And then he like finds his best friend chopped up in the fridge, which is like way out of character for like a Ghostface. You never see like dismemberment really and shit when it comes to Ghostface like that, I feel like, especially on that level. So I mean, that was very jarring. I was like, what? Where did that come from? And you don't see anything really like that the rest of the movie. And it kind of reminded me of like Friday the 13th Part 2, where like she opens up the fridge and she sees like Pamela Voorhees' head. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And also dudes watching like Jason Takes Manhattan on TV in his apartment. They have a lot of these references throughout the movie. But they had a sort of thing where I believe it was like a Scream 3 script about like the cult of Ghostface or something, where it was going to be like, I don't know who was it, like I believe it might have been Stu that was the leader of the cult or something, but it was just all these different people that were Ghostface going around and causing all this mayhem. And I thought that was kind of the direction they were going to go with it, is going to be there isn't just one specific person as Ghostface or killer. It could be anybody. It's literally tons of people that are in this cult and dressing up as Ghostface trying to kill somebody. I feel like that's an amazing idea to bring to the franchise, and I think it would definitely be way different and outside of the box than what we're accustomed to. I thought that's kind of the route we were going in, and then they just drop it eventually. I really thought they were going to go that route, especially when you're getting introduced to like the theater with all the Scream shit in it. Like you have all the Ghostface outfits from all the killers, and which is another thing where it's like, how did they even get to this stuff? I mean, the only explanation they give is, police like money, police, they'll give away evidence for the right price or whatever. It's like literally everything. You're telling me they're giving away murder weapons and the murder outfits. I just find it hard to believe that they were able to get every single piece of art, like memorabilia or stuff that was involved with these murders all over these years. Like from the TVs that killed Stu to like Billy Loomis's like bloody t-shirt. I mean, it was like all of the damn Ghostface outfits from every single killer and the knives they used to kill the people with. I was like, what? Where's this coming from? And I feel like it would have made sense if you had a cult where it's like a ton of people trying or like stealing and collecting this shit, where it's like, when it boils down to it, it's just like 2 or 3 people that just gathered this up somehow. And it's like, how did they manage this? Where did this come from? Like, none of this makes sense. But I thought the cult of Ghostface would have been a cool thing to do with this in this movie. They kind of just throw that out the window. The other thing I thought was interesting is the whole huge conspiracy, like Reddit conspiracy about Sam was the one that set up and orchestrated the murders in Scream 5. It wasn't Richie, and then like people were like praising Richie and stuff. You find out how that all started. But I think that if you would have followed through with that, and you could have utilized that to a cool way. And you could have utilized it into the other thing they didn't use, which they were building up from the 5th one, Does Sam have, a fucked up... Is Sam fucked up in the head? Is she going to be a killer at some point? They hint at it a lot in 5. They hinted at it even more in 6 here. And then at the very end, you feel like they let it go, and you don't buy into it the whole time of the whole movie. I have a feeling they want you to think that there's a possibility Sam could be the killer in this. But through the whole thing, you're like, there's no way Sam did this. Like, come on, I'm not buying it. I feel like they should have leaned even more into that and everything. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities with some of these ideas they put in there, and they're like, they got too scared to go ahead with them. So they're like, maybe we'll just kind of go back to what works. We know people like this sort of thing, so we're going to go back to what makes Scream work. Where it's like, they need to just commit. Take one of these ideas, commit, and go for it. I think you can't go wrong. I feel like even the people that love these sequels, that love Scream, I feel like they're going to be open to the ideas of new stuff. And I like that. And I mean, I like some of the ideas. Like I mentioned, the cult of Ghostface thing, the Sam possibly becoming a killer thing. I didn't like her seeing her dead dad, who she never met, Billy Loomis, just to bring an excuse to bring Skeet Ulrich back. I hate that. I always hated it. I'm going to continue to hate it. It's just going to be hard to change my mind on that one. And kind of going into this, speaking of not committing, Scream 6 also has another problem with that. This movie was built up as the most, and they've been saying this since like Scream 3 or Scream 4. This is the most brutal Scream. This is the most brutal Ghostface has been. He stabs a bunch of people with a knife. Chick falls off of a fucking like roof and hits her head on a dumpster, and there's some cool practical effects in that scene. Dude gets blasted with a shotgun, you barely see it. I mean, there's not much in here that you haven't seen before in a Scream movie, and it's not much compared to what else is out there as far as like gore and stuff. They're going to say that about every Scream movie. It definitely wasn't true in this one. But they branded this as like the most brutal and scary Ghostface. There's 3 people in this movie that he straight up stabs more than 2 or 3 times, fucks them up, but they're okay. This movie has no balls to it. The plot armor is heavy with this movie, and it's easy to see who they want to go through. It's easy to see who they want to go forward with through the next who knows how many sequels they're going to do. I don't know. I mean, since we're talking about spoilers, Gail, there was no reason to bring Gail back in this movie other than just to possibly think, oh, is Gail dead? They brought her back and essentially made her who she was back in Scream 1 again. You find out after Scream 5, Gail went and wrote another book talking about the new Woodsboro murders. And she pretty much insinuated that Sam is fucked in the head and she's the one that could have orchestrated the killings, and what kind of maybe possibly kickstarted the whole, conspiracy theory about Sam doing everything. And it sucks to see Gail have this character arc through all these movies just to have her kind of go right back to square fucking one again. What was the point of her being in this movie? I feel like her and Neve Campbell at the end of Scream 5, which I didn't like Scream 5 at all, that could have been like their swan song. They could have went out and then that was it. You could have went forward with this new cast. There was really no point to bringing Gail into this movie. The only thing that she really did for them was help them find that like hideout with all the, Scream artifacts and memorabilia and shit. Whereas Kirby is really the one that should have found that. She was the FBI agent that should have been digging through all this. But no, Gail's the reporter. She's the one from all the movies. You've got to bring her back so to do this. There was no point of her being in this movie. And then you go and you have Ghostface attack her and stab her multiple times. She looks like she's going to die. And then there's a throwaway line later. Oh, we got in contact with the hospital. Gail's going to be okay. And I was like, bro, she should have died in the last movie instead of Dewey. But then you almost do it in this movie, and then you just, let her off the hook last. And it's like, why? There was no reason to bring her back, but you brought her back so she can get attacked, and then you don't kill her anyway. And so what's the point? What are you going to do with her in the next movie? I don't know. I'm so pissed off with the way that they did Courtney Cox and her character dirty in this one. But the other character almost died is Mindy, who she is in Scream 5. I really did like her character in that last movie. In this one, they really dialed her character up to 10. I feel like she's overdoing it a lot Like I don't know, she's kind of like playing a caricature of herself a little bit. She's just really over the top. And I didn't like her character nearly as much as the last one. But she's part of the scare, like the subway train scene you see in the trailers and stuff. And it's like, they built that scene up as going to be super tense and everything, but I feel like this scene really fell flat when you're watching it in the theaters as well. They built it up in the trailers like it was going to be something cool, but like the scene was meh in the movie itself. But she, gets straight up stabbed a couple of times in the subway train by Ghostface. You think she's done. And like, even dude comes out and pulls her out and tries to save her and like calls 911 or whatever. You find out she's fucking fine. It was like, oh, she got stabbed like 4 times. And it's not like Ghostface couldn't have just done it. He could have killed her. He stabbed her in the gut like 4 times. He could have slit her throat. This Ghostface is so brutal throughout the movie. Why couldn't he just commit to killing? This movie has a commitment problem, like I keep saying. But she should have been dead as well. She comes right back at the very end. No problem. The last one, Chad. Chad has been having this forced relationship with Jenna Ortega's character like 3 times throughout this movie. They didn't have like any interaction really in the last one, barely any chemistry. They introduce a weird connection between them after Jenna Ortega was possibly trying to hook up with someone else and he was trying to get his buddy laid. I don't know. Now they have some kind of connection all of a sudden. They barely even talk through the movie, and now they're like, oh, I want to be with you. I love you now. Came out of nowhere. Felt very forced. Didn't really buy it. I like the character separately, but I didn't really buy their relationship at all. But anyway, Chad gets stabbed the fuck by 2 Ghostface at the very end. He gets stabbed so much. They're holding him and just stabbing the hell out of him. Not dead. Comes out, they wheel him out on a gurney at the end. Oh, okay. Bro, how much plot armor do these characters need in this movie? Like, I just don't understand it. What's the point of even putting them in harm's way if you're just not going to kill them? That's 3 characters you just threw out in the harm's way, had them die get stabbed multiple times. Like, oh, no, we're just kidding. They're all right. Don't worry about it. This movie just lacks any real stakes when you do something like that. When you have just characters just getting stabbed, willy-nilly, and then they're just fine, it's like there's just no impact with it. Like, and now, like, in any Scream movie, anytime someone gets stabbed, like, oh, they're going to be all right, don't worry about it. These Scream movies make huge points of following the rules, following the movie rules, but these movies don't even follow their own rules, especially this one. And I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way, especially the 3rd act, which we will get into here. Now, for those who don't know, there were leaks about who the killers were. I was fortunate enough not to see any of them, so I went in the movie real fresh, not knowing anything. I saw the first trailer. I barely watched any trailers after that because I knew what I was expecting. You find out there's 3 killers in this movie. One is the cop that's been helping him the whole movie, which is like you kind of saw it coming in a way, the way he was asking questions and trying to put the blame on Sam throughout the movie, trying to find excuses to put the blame on Sam and everything. I don't know. Something was shady about this cop dude from the start. The other 2 killers are his children. One is Sam and Jenna Ortega's roommate who dies halfway through the movie, but they have a whole plan that they like replace the body and use prosthetics and everything. They don't show any of this. It's just a throwaway line during the killer's huge monologue at the end, where it's like, that just seems very weird. And how would you even have pulled that off within the New York Police Department on a homicide scene? Doesn't make any sense. The other killer is Chad's roommate, who you see throughout the movie sometimes, doesn't really have much dialogue. The only real reason that character is there is to tell everybody in every single scene, I'm not the killer. It wasn't me. I was at class. I'm not the killer. That's literally almost every single scene you see this dude in. That's the whole reason he's there, is I'm not the killer, because people think he's the killer. They're accusing him. But this dude has no impact on the story whatsoever. Really. He's not there. He barely has any lines in the movie, but he's the killer, and you're expected to believe this. And the real motive behind this is because they are the family of Richie, who was the killer in the last one that dated Sam. The cop is the dad, and the girl and the boy are his brother and sister, I guess. So yet again, in another Scream movie, we get another family revenge on the main character. So I just don't know what they were thinking when it was coming to this. It doesn't seem like there was any planning behind this. One, I don't know how anybody didn't know that cop dude was Richie's dad, because I feel like you would have to know who the father is or have get in contact with the father of someone who was a serial killer going around murdering people. And how did Sam not know that this was his father? Did Richie just never tell anything about his family to Sam? Or did Sam not see anything on the news about Richie's family whenever everything was going on? I have so many questions because they just don't do anything with this in the movie. They don't answer really anything. They're just like, oh, this would be cool. It's Richie's family wanting to get revenge, but there's no thought behind it. They don't. I feel like they just didn't think of any of these questions when they just like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let's just throw it in the movie. They didn't think of like any of the thought process behind it or the repercussions or like how any of this would connect. It just doesn't make sense to me. And to be honest, I just thought it was lazy writing and it was dumb. For the most part, I thought the first half was okay. Had a lot of great ideas, like I mentioned. That second half, that back half, that third act was real bad. Real bad. Especially, I mean, the whole reveal. And what is up with it now? And we've seen this through the past couple movies. What is up with every killer when they're doing their monologue doing the same Stu impersonation from the fucking first movie? It seems like every person who plays a killer in these past couple movies has just watched the first one. Like, yeah, everybody seems to just resonate with that Stu, that last scene of Scream. So I feel like every killer tries to mimic Stu's performance in these movies. And it just comes off so hammy and so fucking weird. It's like, do something different. The whole rest of the movie is copying the rest of the Scream movies. Give us something different out of these killers, other than just like, oh, I'm fucking crazy now. I'm composed to the rest of the movie, but now that you know I'm the killer, I'm fucking bananas. It's I don't know. It's infuriating to me how people are just falling for this and just being fooled into seeing the same movie every time. And I was one of them. Believe me, at a certain point, I was into it, but now I'm just like, I see it. I put my They Live glasses on and I see what everybody else can't see, apparently. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more angry I get, which I shouldn't be because it's just a film franchise. And you know what? I'm glad people like it because I'm not going to hate on anybody that likes these movies. I'm not going to hate on anybody that likes something that I don't like. You know, to each their own. You all have your own opinions. I have my own opinions. I'm glad people like Scream 6. I'm glad people are going out and, you know, it has a huge box office gross opening weekend because I'm just happy that horror movies are doing well in the mainstream. So, I mean, it may not be something I like, but I'm glad people are liking it and getting enjoyment out of it. And that means that more horror movies are going to get made and pushed to the mainstream here going forward, which, hey, I'm all for it. But as far as Scream movies, I don't know. I might have to bow out of here. I mean, I might catch that seventh one, the bookend to the trilogy here. But man, anything after that, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into before I go to a screening of it here. Really went longer than I expected to on this review. I just had a lot of issues, and I watched this movie yesterday. I was planning to do the review last night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to hold off. I need to think about it. I need to marinate on this overnight, think about it even more. And I feel like the more I think about it, the more I get irritated by them just doing the same shit. And I don't know. I mean, I'm happy for the people that liked it. I'm glad you got what you wanted out of it. But I am just hoping that with Scream 7, they can kind of wrap it up in a nice bow with something different and kind of blow people's minds away with this one. But yeah, that is my Scream 6 review here. I did like certain parts of it. I liked a couple ideas that they brought to the table. Unfortunately, they just didn't follow through with them. It is what it is. I hope they can kind of break the mold and do something different going forward with the series. But, you know, That's wishful thinking at this point. But if you did like the movie, definitely leave a comment here telling me exactly what you liked about the movie or what you liked about the series in general. For those who didn't like the movie, also tell me what you didn't like about the movie in the comments below. Get a conversation going. Let's talk about Scream a little bit. I might have to start covering a little bit more on the channel here. Maybe we'll do a Scream series review at some point or a Scream ranking at some point. Bring Alex on here to talk about Scream. Alex has mentioned before, I believe, on the show that he thinks Scream is one of the most solid franchises out there. It's hard not to agree. They are well-made movies. But as far as entertainment and everything and the movies themselves, it's not hard to be good when you're copying the same movie every time. But I feel like I've beaten that dead horse enough times over this review. You don't need to hear it anymore from me. But go out, form your own opinion for yourself. If you haven't seen the movie, definitely go watch it. Don't let my opinion sway you. Stay tuned. This Thursday on the show, me and Alex are going to be reviewing the finale of The Last of Us on HBO. The end is finally here and the wait for season 2 begins. But we are going to be getting into the finale, talking all about it, and also talking about what we can expect from season 2 of The Last of Us. But yeah, that is a review. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. We're pretty much available everywhere. Drop in and leave us a good review, and we'll see everybody next time.